My mother is the heroine of a doting wife novel. She firmly believes that a daughter is her father's little lover from a past life, so I suffered endless humiliation and died. In this new life, I swapped wombs with a male ghost on the Naiha Bridge. After giving birth to a son, the mother let her guard down. A son is his mother's little husband from a past life. When you grow up, you mustn't be jealous of your dad. Okay, I chuckled. Of course, he won't be jealous of his dad, after all. In his previous life, he was Dad's strong gay boyfriend. Tisk, how come you're pregnant too? Look at that belly. It must be a girl. Daughters are nothing but troublemakers. It's best to send her away as soon as possible. Hearing this voice, my scalp instantly went numb. That's how my mother was in my past life. Just because I was a daughter, she would mock me with a few words whenever she felt like it, if I showed even the slightest sign of displeasing her. Kneeling as punishment was considered light, so upon hearing this familiar voice, I couldn't help but tremble all over. What should I do? Could it be that I've been reborn into my mother's womb again? No. If that's the case, I'd rather be strangled at birth than endure endless torment in her hands. I gathered all my strength, trying to suffocate myself. A pair of gentle hands softly caressed the belly. Sister-in-law. What are you talking about? I suddenly relaxed, carefully identifying the voice. Thank goodness, it's Auntie. In my previous life, Auntie couldn't have children and had also suggested adopting me, but Mom thought Auntie lived too close, afraid I might contact Dad and seduce him, so she would rather send me to the countryside than let Auntie raise me. If I were Auntie's child, I might have lived a very happy life. I placed my little hand on my belly, reaching out to shake hands with Auntie across the distance. Auntie gently patted her belly with affection. Look at how our little one is feeling wronged. Don't listen to your aunt's nonsense. A daughter is not a troublemaker. Both boys and girls are my treasures. My eyes sparkled as I looked at Auntie. That means I've been reborn into my aunt's womb. Great. I've finally escaped the control of that old witch. Mom pursed her lips and secretly rolled her eyes. Don't say I didn't warn you. They say daughters are their father's little lovers from a past life. When your husband dotes on this other woman more than you, don't come crying to me. Auntie frowned, her tone full of disapproval. How can you say that? The child would be hurt to hear such words. Mom didn't seem to care at all upon hearing this. What does it matter if they're hurt or not? I certainly don't want to give birth to a little rival for myself. She glared fiercely at her slightly bulging belly, pounding it hard a couple of times. You little bitch, just you wait. I'll make sure you die in there. I lazily rolled over inside my aunt's belly. Didn't expect that. Did you, old witch? I'm not in your belly anymore. The one in your belly is the son you've been longing for. Anyway, I'm not in the old witch's belly anymore. It doesn't matter how much she torments herself. Ouch, that hurts so much. Just you wait, you old witch. A tender child's voice rang out. I was startled. Who, what is this? Li Junsheng. It was the male ghost who swapped fates with me. In my previous life, he stood on the Naiha Bridge. Upon learning that my father was the reincarnation of his beloved, he came to ask me how my father was doing. After understanding my background, he decided to swap fates with me. Don't worry, I'm the best at tormenting this kind of green tea bitch. I hesitated for a moment. Originally, I had wanted to be reborn with a different mother. But then I remembered my mother's sinister laughter at the funeral, and what she had said, it's better to die now. So no one will find out you're not Gumo's biological child. Only then did I realize I wasn't the bad child who seduced others. It was just an excuse my mother made up, and I was merely a pawn in my mother's game for favor. Thinking of this, I raised my eyes and said firmly, yes, I'll change, but this body isn't my father's biological child. Grandma values bloodline, and if it's discovered, I'll definitely be kicked out of the family. Hearing that the body wasn't his father's biological child, Li Junsheng became even more excited. Hurry, 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 change now, change immediately. Perhaps because of the body swap, we could hear each other's thoughts. Damn it, that old witch has also been reborn. She still thinks the baby in her belly is you and is trying everything to have an abortion. What should we do then? Although it's not me in the old witch's belly right now. But if Li Junsheng wasted a chance at reincarnation because of the body swap, I would feel very guilty. Li Junsheng's youthful voice carried an unshakable anger. Don't worry, if she messes with me, I won't let her off easy either. I'll kick and thrash inside her belly, just to spite you, you old witch. Ah, a startled cry rang out as Mom clutched her stomach tightly, though in great pain. Mother's lips curled upward at the corners. Just as she was about to fall, she deliberately grabbed Auntie's clothes and pulled hard backward. You bitch. In my previous life, you couldn't even bear a single child. And I had you under my thumb your whole life. I never expected to be so lucky in this lifetime, getting pregnant almost at the same time as me. No, what if she gives birth to a boy who competes for the family fortune? It just so happens that I don't want the little brat in my belly either. When both children are gone, it'll be killing two birds with one stone. Feeling the tug, my aunt instinctively covered her stomach, but still fell heavily to the ground. With blood already seeping through the clothes, my baby, the painful cry of my aunt echoed in my ears. I lay in the womb, thrashing about, feeling dizzy and disoriented, but still, I tried my best to curl up into a ball, afraid of accidentally bumping into Auntie's belly. She must have done it on purpose. She had always looked down on Auntie for not being able to have children, often bringing up her childlessness. This led Grandma to constantly find fault with Auntie as well. Now he even drags my aunt into trouble whenever he gets the chance. I watched my aunt, her face pale, with a heart full of sympathy. Unfortunately, I was still an unborn baby and couldn't seek revenge for my aunt. Li Junqing had no such concerns. As the strong gay boyfriend from Dad's previous life, he was already upset about not being able to reunite with Dad. He felt a jolt and began fiercely pounding his little fists against his belly. "You old witch, how dare you bump into me? I'll make you suffer." Dad heard the noise and quickly called for the doctor. "Honey, it hurts so much. It must be that little brat in my belly deliberately tormenting me." Mom lay in Dad's arms, acting coquettishly, which made me shudder with disgust. In my past life, she also pretended to be weak and delicate in front of Dad like this. She played the role of a loving mother, pretending to breastfeed, but actually buying low-quality formula and often forgetting to feed. I was so hungry I couldn't bear it, so I could only cry to remind her. She would always viciously poke my forehead hard. Then she brought over a bottle of milk that had been tampered with. When I was sick, she took advantage of the fact that I couldn't speak and told my dad that I got sick because I refused to wear clothes. I was so angry that I bit her. She threw herself into her father's arms, complaining that I often threw tantrums for no reason. So, Dad gradually grew tired of me, until I passed away. Dad still believed it was due to my poor health that I died so young. He even thought that a troublemaker like me, it's actually not bad to die early. So my funeral was particularly simple. Thinking of this, I glared angrily at my mother. "You old witch. Just you wait, see how I'll deal with you after I'm born." Dad frowned, but seeing how uncomfortable Mom was, he didn't say anything in the end. "It's a good thing the baby is lively. Don't overthink it. Just stay in the hospital and rest well during this time." Mom pouted, squeezing out 2 tears in grievance. "Honey, what if I give birth to a girl and you only love our daughter and stop loving me?" Dad patiently held Mom's hand to comfort her. "How could you think that? Both you and the child are my treasures." A wave of bitterness welled up in Mom's heart. "My husband really does like that little bitch. I was indeed too lenient with her in my previous life. This time, I must find someone to humiliate her thoroughly before throwing her out to feed the dogs." Mom's heart was filled with bitterness, but on the surface, she pretended to be happy, leaning against Dad's shoulder. Li Junqing was so furious at this point that he felt his lungs were about to explode. "You old witch, who allowed you to seduce my man?" Li Junqing squirmed restlessly in the womb, occasionally tugging at the placenta, and even digging his nails into the tender flesh of the belly. The mother writhed in pain on the hospital bed, twisting like a worm. "Honey, it hurts so much. This little bitch is trying to kill me. Honey, save me. Quickly get rid of this little bitch." Dad anxiously called for the doctor. The doctor had never encountered such a situation before and had no choice but to ask the nurse to administer a fetal protection injection. As the medication slowly entered, Li Junqing in the womb gradually calmed down. Mom was drenched in sweat, as if she had just been pulled out of the water. Her hair was a mess, tangled and sticking to her face and neck, looking a bit unkempt. A flicker of disdain flashed in Dad's eyes, but Mom caught it nonetheless. Her nails dug deep into her flesh. But she knew she must never let her father see her private, hysterical state. After all, her maternal family had fallen into decline. If it weren't for the childhood bond with her father and the fact that they had a child together, he would have sent her abroad back when the drug incident happened. Where else could she be as secure as she is now, living as Mrs. Gu? Mom composed herself and thoughtfully asked Dad to return to the company to handle official matters. "It's fine. The nanny can take care of me here." Dad clearly appreciated her newfound maturity and walked out of the hospital room without looking back, so I didn't see the momentary ferocity on my mother's face. "You little bitch, just wait until you're born. I'll see how I can slowly torture you to death." During this time, Li Junqing has been much quieter. Whenever he tried to cause trouble, my mother immediately had someone give him a tocolytic injection. After a few back and forths, Li Junqing didn't dare to act recklessly anymore. After all, too many shots to prevent miscarriage can cause significant harm to the fetus. He didn't want to be born a fool either. Mom felt she had me under control and gleefully ran to Auntie's hospital room to show off. "Oh my, why are you still lying in bed? It must be that little troublemaker in your belly causing you trouble. Let me tell you, while she's still in your belly, you better get her under control right away, once she's born. Won't you be completely at your mercy? Hearing this, Auntie was utterly stunned. Why bother controlling her? She's just a baby. I looked at my mother's contorted face, clenching my fists in anger. Well, you old witch, even though I'm no longer in your belly, you still want to bully me. Fortunately, my aunt is a reasonable person. If I have to endure another lifetime of torment, I'll have to work for the king of hell for 100 years before I can be reincarnated again. Mom rudely snatched the emerald peace buckle from Auntie's hand and put it around her own neck. I was just trying to give you a friendly reminder, but if you won't listen, there's nothing I can do. Auntie watched helplessly as Mom snatched the peace buckle away, forcing herself to suppress the anger in her heart. My uncle has no interest in business and only holds some shares in the company. The company has been thriving under my father's management. My mother believes that my father is supporting my uncle's family and that my aunt has taken advantage of this, but I know that my mother has always been jealous of my aunt. Auntie's family is harmonious, and uncle has always doted on her. Unlike Mom, Dad's affection for her is only superficial. In reality, there isn't much genuine affection between the two. Moreover, Mom's family went bankrupt. After much thought, the only thing that could surpass Auntie was Dad taking over the company. Auntie comes from a good family and has a good temper. Although Mom often argues with her, she doesn't want to say anything that would disturb the peace at home. Even if I didn't like my mom, I never thought of complaining to anyone. But this time, perhaps due to the emotional fluctuations of pregnancy, my aunt snatched the item back from my mom's hands for the first time. What are you doing? This is for my daughter. I couldn't help but wiggle my toes. My heart leaped with joy. It turned out that it was because of my aunt that I had a falling out with my mother. My mother's eyes widened in shock. How dare you? This was bought with my husband's money. Auntie refused to be outdone. Zhao Siki, don't be so ungrateful. What do you mean? Your husband's money? My husband is also a child of the Gu family, and the Gu family's money has a share for my husband too. What's wrong with me buying things with my own money? Besides, this is an heirloom of our Qin family. And it has nothing to do with the Gu family at all. I can give it to whoever I want. Before, I pitied your family for going bankrupt, and I never held it against you when you took my things, but this is the peace buckle I gave to my child. I won't give it to you. You can give up on that idea. It seems Auntie has been putting up with Mom for a long time. Saying it all at once made her feel much more relaxed. Mom, Zhao Siki, gritted her teeth in anger, unwilling to back down verbally. If it weren't for my husband's hard work, where would you get so many dividends? What's wrong with me taking a little from your family? Auntie laughed in extreme anger. All right. How about this? Let's split the Gu family's assets equally between our two families, and from now on, we go our separate ways. Don't you dare say we rely on your husband to support us. Zhao Siki's chest heaved continuously. Of course, she couldn't make decisions for the Gu family. In a fit of anger, she actually smashed the peace buckle directly. If you won't give it to me, then you won't have it either. Auntie watched helplessly as the family heirloom shattered on the floor, her vision going dark. She was so enraged that she fainted on the spot. Zhao Siki was so frightened that she immediately fled back to her own hospital room, pretending nothing had happened. I anxiously squirmed in my mother's womb. Little uncle is a man who dotes on his wife. As soon as he heard about the hospital incident, he rushed over to take care of her. He even had an unprecedented big argument with my father, Guemo. After hearing the whole story, Guemo returned all the things he had taken from little aunt over the years, and also sent many supplements, emerald jewelry, and several villas. I don't know what Guemo said to Zhao Siki. Zhao Siki came to the little aunt's hospital room to apologize solemnly, but anyone could see her reluctance. However, it doesn't matter. Once we are both born, there will be plenty of ways to torment her. Auntie is a respectable person. Once an emerald shatters, it cannot be restored. It's the benefits in hand that are most tangible. Better to turn a blind eye and let it pass with a laugh. Guemo, to prevent Zhao Siki from doing something foolish again, hired 2 bodyguards to stand guard at the door of her hospital room. Zhao Siki had been quiet for a long time, and we all thought she had finally settled down, until that day, when Li Junqing urgently woke me up. Stop sleeping, wake up quickly. If we keep sleeping, we're both done for. I had just woken up when I saw Zhao Siki holding a 30-centimeter long silver needle. Zhao Siki wore a sinister smile on her face, muttering to herself as she approached. You wretched woman, we both married into the Gu family. Why could you give birth to a son, while I only had a worthless girl? Master Heian said, once I insert this silver needle into your belly, the fetus can be successfully changed. Don't you like girls? Wait until you give birth to a little mistress to compete for favor, then we'll see if you can still laugh. So it was a Taoist priest who calculated the gender of the child in the womb. Zhao Siki believed the Taoist priest's words and planned to change the fetus, but that was no instrument for changing a fetus. It was clearly just an ordinary silver needle. With such a long needle piercing into my belly, I would either die or be left disabled. Li Juanqing's anxious voice carried a hint of weakness. The old witch gave me a sedative in advance, and I have no strength at all. Quickly wake your mother up, or we're both done for. Seeing this, I struggled desperately to get up. Auntie squirmed uncomfortably on the bed. Zhao Siki held the silver needle, unable to find an opportunity, her heart filled with anxiety. Damn it, the Taoist priest said the entire needle must be inserted straight into the body from the navel. I need to find a way to pin her down on the bed, Zhao Siki said as she left the room. I had just breathed a sigh of relief when I saw Zhao Siki walk into the ward with a bottle of sleeping pills. Zhao Siki held a hemp rope she had found from somewhere, intending to tie my aunt's limbs to the bed, but Li Juanqing kept causing trouble every day. Zhao Siki had a poor appetite and was physically weak, and for a moment, she couldn't pull her aunt-in-law. Zhao Siki simply shoved the pill into her aunt-in-law's mouth rudely, then picked up a bottle of water, trying to wash the pill down. The aunt-in-law on the bed immediately choked on the water and woke up. Cough, cough, cough. Who are you? Why are you in my room? Auntie instinctively pushed Zhao Siki out a bit. Auntie has a good appetite, and I also stay quietly in the womb without causing any trouble. Auntie had a comfortable pregnancy, eating and drinking well, and she has quite a bit of strength. Zhao Siki was pushed to the ground, clutching her stomach and screaming in agony. You bitch, how dare you push me? Just wait until my husband deals with you. The aunt-in-law was also startled when she saw the blood between Zhao Siki's legs. She quickly pressed the call button by the bed to summon the doctor. Zhao Siki was immediately taken into the operating room. Auntie, frightened, was also about to give birth. The obstetrics and gynecology department was truly bustling. Congratulations, ma'am, you've given birth to a baby girl. But, just what? It's just that this child has Down syndrome and also suffers from heart disease. What? During the checkups, didn't they say the child was perfectly healthy? Why is it that a perfectly fine child is born with so many misfortunes? The doctor adjusted his glasses. There is a certain probability that this condition goes undetected during examinations. Please accept my condolences. With that, the doctor quietly slipped out of the ward. Auntie was so frightened that she was at a loss, and Uncle rushed to the hospital overnight upon hearing the news. Uncle Guyang held Auntie in his arms, comforting her with great tenderness. It's okay. It's just Down syndrome and a heart condition. Our Gu family can certainly afford to raise him. Auntie felt a bit more at ease, but all the baby's tests came back normal. How could this be? After thinking for a moment, Auntie decided to share what had happened today. I know you have a good relationship with your eldest brother, but this sister-in-law of yours is truly absurd, to put it bluntly. It wouldn't be surprising if she did something outrageous, do you think? Could it be that sister-in-law switched my child? Guyang was also shocked after hearing the whole story. Sister-in-law actually believes in something as absurd as switching fetuses. Guyang felt a raging fire burning in his heart. He had always thought his sister-in-law was petty and narrow-minded, but out of respect for his elder brother, he had always treated her with courtesy. He never expected his sister-in-law to be so vicious, wanting to insert such a long needle into Yin-Yan's belly. The baby in the womb would either die or be left disabled. Guyang was filled with lingering fear. Yin, don't worry. If it really was my sister-in-law who did this, I will never let her get away with it. Even if it means breaking ties with my brother, I will seek justice for our child. Sun Yin slowly calmed down under Guyang's soothing. By the way, I glanced at the baby after giving birth, and there was a red birthmark on its back. The two immediately checked, but the child's back was smooth and clean, with no birthmark at all. Sun Yin, who had been holding back tears for a long time, let them fall drop by drop. I knew it. What should we do? Will our child? Guyang held Sun Yan's hand. No, Yin, our baby will be blessed with good fortune. I'll send someone to look for them right now. Don't worry, in another ward. The grandparents were gathered around Li Juanqing. Our Gu family finally has an heir. Grandma Gu's face was creased with smiles as she took off her bracelet and handed it to Zhao Siki. Siki, you are the great hero of our Gu family, giving birth to a healthy baby boy for us. Zhao Siki couldn't stop smiling. She never expected she would give birth to a son. Thank goodness she didn't swap babies with that bitch Sun Yin. They say sons are their mother's little husbands from a past life. Now I have two husbands to spoil me. Grandma looked at her grandson, who appeared particularly thin and weak due to premature birth, her heart filled with pain. What a lovely child. It's a shame he was born a month early. Zhao Siki's eyes darted around. Although she had given birth to a son for the Gu family, she was still an outsider after all. If last night's incident were to be exposed, there's no guarantee that the second son who dotes on his wife, wouldn't seek revenge on her. No, she can only preemptively complain to the parents, so they can protect her when the time comes. Dad, Mom, I didn't want to say this, but I really feel for my son. Zhao Siki cautiously glanced at her grandparents' expressions. Yesterday, I was just trying to be kind and went to see my sister-in-law. I never expected that she would push me out of fear that I might give birth to a grandson for the Gu family, which led to the premature birth of the baby. Grandma's expression turned serious. The second son's wife has always been steady and composed. She shouldn't have done something like this. Seeing this, Zhao Siki added fuel to the fire. If you don't believe me, Mom, you can go check Sun Yan's hospital room. She still has a needle over 30 centimeters long that she got from a Taoist priest in her room yesterday. I overheard her saying she wanted to stick such a long needle into my belly to swap the baby, and that's what scared me into early labor. After hearing this, Grandma, who had only believed 3/10 of it before, now believed 7/10. Immediately, she summoned Aunt Zhang, who had been serving by her side, to check the ward. Upon receiving the affirmative answer, she became angry for the first time in a long while. How dare she? Sun Yan usually seems quite reliable, yet she could actually believe such foolish words. Zhao Siki's face turned awkward, but the thought of Sun Yan's impending misfortune brought a hint of glee. Sun Yan, haven't you always pretended to be so high and mighty? Let's see how you handle this. Sun Yan, you bitch. As soon as Grandma entered the hospital room, she slapped Sun Yan across the face. Sun Yan covered her red, swollen cheek, looking utterly disbelieving. Mom, why did you hit me? Grandma narrowed her eyes. I hit you because you deserved it. Don't you know what shameful things you've done yourself? Sun Yan's pent-up grievances for many days erupted in a series of outbursts. She could hardly hold back the tears in her eyes. What kind of disgraceful thing could I possibly do? Zhao Siki sneaked into my room in the middle of the night and nearly killed my baby, and now she has even switched my child. If anyone is doing something disgraceful, it's that Zhao Siki. The old lady slapped her again. How dare you argue back? I've heard all about it. You gave birth to a child with a heart condition and Down syndrome. Where does that leave the face of our Gu family? You're still slandering your sister-in-law now. Siki is right. You're just jealous that she gave birth to a healthy boy. How can you be so malicious? I must make Gu Yang divorce you. You can have the child, but don't even think about getting a single penny. Sun Yan was already on edge about the child, and the old woman's commotion pushed her over the edge, causing her to smash the cup by the hospital bed in a fit of emotion. Get out of here. Grandma Gu was startled by Sun Yan's hysterical appearance, and forced herself to stay calm, leaving behind the words, our Gu family doesn't want a poisonous woman like you. After leaving the hospital room, the old lady immediately called Gu Yang and told him to divorce Sun Yan. Gu Yang was already overwhelmed by the child's situation. Too lazy to deal with my mother's persistent nagging, I casually responded a few times and hung up the phone. Zhao Siki felt even more pleased upon learning about the divorce dispute in the second family. Who told you to always act so aloof and detached from worldly matters? Let's see if you can still keep up the act now. Gu Mo's company was very busy, and he didn't even come to the postpartum care center to see the child once after the birth. Li Junqing was unhappy and cried day and night. If it were in the previous life, Zhao Siki would definitely have sent the child away again, but ever since she found out she had a son, her attitude did a complete 180. She would rather endure the daily ear-piercing noise than keep the child by her side. Oh my dear son, please stop crying. Okay. Li Junqing already disliked her. Watching Zhao Siki's face draw near, he spat a mouthful of milk right onto her face. Though the baby's hands were small, his strength was not. Long nails scratched fiercely at Zhao Siki's face. Zhao Siki was so frightened that she almost threw Li Junqing, whom she was holding in her arms, but she couldn't bear to part with her precious son, so she could only frantically cry out for the nanny to come and take the child away. What happened? Guemo finally had time to come to the hospital, only to witness such a scene. His wife in name had disheveled hair, with her face and clothes damp. There were also many scratches on her face. Meanwhile, their son's eyes were red, his face streaked with tears, and he was gazing at him with a look of deep affection. Li Junqing opened his arms, wanting Guemo to hug him. Guemo involuntarily stepped forward. He actually felt that this child was very familiar. After fussing for a long time, Li Junqing finally fell into a deep sleep in Gumo's arms. Honey, you finally came to see me and the baby. Zhao Siki pouted and spoke in a coquettish tone, feeling wronged. Gumo's expression remained unchanged as he spoke calmly. Was it you who did that to our second daughter? Zhao Siki widened her eyes, her gaze shifting around guiltily. Honey, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Guemo wasn't buying it. Someone in his position would have done thorough research before coming to confront her. Sun Yan stormed into the hospital room. Zhao Siki, you're still playing dumb. Zhao Siki wished she could bore 2 holes through Sun Yan with her glare. What are you doing here? Didn't mom tell you to get out of the Gu family, right? And you have to take your stupid daughter with you and leave with nothing. Haha. Sun Yan's eyes blazed with intense fury. You first bribed the night shift nurse at the hospital, then sneaked into my ward to try and switch babies with me. I never expected to be discovered by me, after I pushed you. You went into the operating room, while I was just frightened, so the hospital first took me to the ward for observation, and I didn't go into the operating room until after you gave birth and my water broke. You took advantage of the moment right after I gave birth, when everyone's attention was on me, to bribe the doctor and switch my child, didn't you? I lay in Sun Yan's arms, glaring angrily at Zhao Siki. I'm so furious, I almost missed out on a life of wealth and love. Looking at Zhao Siki's ugly expression, the pent-up anger in my heart finally dissipated. Stop struggling, just go to prison quietly. Zhao Siki tried to argue. This is just your one-sided story, you have no evidence, so why are you slandering me? Sun Yan certainly has evidence. The bribed doctor timidly stepped forward. It was her, she gave me 3 million to switch the child. Please don't call the police. I can return the money to you. If I call the police, my life will be over. A mocking smile tugged at the corner of Sun Yan's lips. What would have happened to my daughter if I hadn't found out? On the day I was discovered, the trafficker was about to board an international flight with me. One more step and you'll never find me again. However, if you accuse Zhao Siki of her crimes in court, I can guarantee your family will be well provided for the rest of their lives. Zhao Siki screamed loudly. You can't call the police to arrest me. I am the eldest daughter-in-law of the Gu family. I am the biological mother of the Gu family's eldest grandson. Zhao Siki suddenly lunged forward and grabbed Gu Mo's hand. Husband, say something. I can't go to jail. Have you forgotten? We grew up together since childhood. My parents are gone now, and you promised to take care of me for the rest of my life. Gu Mo looked at the child in his arms, feeling conflicted. This child had a deep connection with him. If he sent the child's birth mother to prison, I wonder if the child will blame him when they grow up. Guemo pulled Zhao Siki's hand away, but did not express his stance. I anxiously looked at Guemo, afraid that he might be swayed by old feelings and let Zhao Siki escape again. Grandma Gu suddenly appeared at the door. What's going on? Why is everyone gathered here? Zhao Siki quickly grasped at the last straw. Mom, save me. I don't want to go to jail. After understanding the whole story, Mrs. Gu slapped Zhao Siki. How foolish you are. Grandma Gu was so angry that her chest heaved continuously, but she still spoke up. Yin Yin, it was my fault before. I shouldn't have hit you without understanding the situation. How about this? I'll give the land in the northern part of the city to my dear granddaughter. Consider it my birthday gift to her. Sun Yin knew that old lady Gu had been deceived, and nodded with good temper. It was also a way to give the old lady a way out. Grandma Gu smiled with relief and stepped forward to pat Sun Yan on the shoulder. Then maybe we should just let this matter with your sister-in-law go. After all, the child wasn't harmed, right? Sun Yan suddenly raised her head and took a step back in disbelief. Mom, Guai Guai is also your own granddaughter. She was almost abducted abroad by Zhao Siki. Old Mrs. Gu wore a guilty expression on her face but still tried to persuade. Family scandals should not be aired in public. If this gets out of hand, it will be embarrassing for all of us. Besides, Zhao Siki gave birth to a son. In the future, the entire Gu family will belong to my dear grandson. The future heir of the Gu family has a mother who has been to prison. How do you expect others to view him? Sun Yan took a deep breath. She knew the old lady had always favored the eldest son's family and that she valued sons over daughters. But she never expected the favoritism to go this far. From the moment the child was born, the only time I ever saw the old lady was when I slapped her twice that day. The birthday gift for the child was also meant to plead for Zhao Siki. I waved my little fists. In my previous life, the old lady never really liked me. This time, you still want to shield Zhao Siki, who trafficked me. Just you wait, see if I don't pull your oxygen tube when you're old. Sun Yan held me tightly, trying to draw some strength from me. I disagree. I'm definitely suing Zhao Siki. Seeing Sun Yan so determined, Zhao Siki immediately panicked. She abruptly picked up Li Junqing, who was still sleeping in bed. Mom, the child is still so young. He can't be without his mother. Please help me. Don't let me go to jail. Mrs. Gu, having been turned down by the daughter-in-law she had always looked down on, felt her face was losing its shine. She finally grew anxious. All right, Sun Yan. I asked for your opinion out of respect for you. If you insist on suing Zhao Siki, then get out of the Gu family. Once timid, Sun Yan now stood firm for her daughter, refusing to back down. Fine, if she dares to lay a finger on my daughter, I'll sue her even if it costs me everything. I looked at Sun Yan with tears in my eyes. Is this what it feels like to have a mother? So happy, but I can't let my mother fight alone. I started desperately urging Li Junqing to wake up. Wake up, wake up. Don't let the old witch escape. Li Junqing, who was in Zhao Siki's arms, was also awakened by the noise. He immediately started punching and kicking at Zhao Siqi's face. "Let go of me, you old witch. How dare you hold me?" Zhao Siqi held Li Junqing down firmly. Guemo is young and accomplished. Women willing to bear his child could line up all the way to France. So what if there's a child? There are plenty of women willing to take care of his child for him. What if the old lady finds out that the children don't like her and forces her to get a divorce? But she forgot that children can move more than just their hands and feet. Li Junqing cried and fussed in her arms, flailing his arms and legs. Zhao Siqi immediately had 2 more scratches on her face. The nanny quickly stepped forward to take the child away. Sun Yan laughed at the sight. "Oh, so this is your precious son. It seems he doesn't really like you. Maybe you should just divorce her, big brother. After all, having a mother who has been to prison doesn't sound very good." Guemo has always cared about his reputation. Previously, the reason he didn't divorce Zhao Siqi was partly because of their child, and partly, it was actually to save face. Having a one-night stand with a childhood sweetheart and making her have an abortion, this really doesn't sound like something a decent person would do. Anyway, he's not interested in women. At worst, he could just keep her at home, which would also reduce a lot of gossip, but a wife with poor morals clearly made him even more ashamed. Seeing Gumo's hesitation, Zhao Siqi knelt at the feet of old Mrs. Gu. "Mom, how can a stepmother care for a child as much as their own mother? I was just inexperienced at holding the baby and accidentally hurt him. You'll get better with practice." Grandma Gu hesitated for a moment. I hummed twice, pointing my little finger at the nanny holding Li Junqing. Sun Yan immediately understood. "Mom, isn't there a nanny? Zhao Siqi isn't the type to take care of others anyway. It would be better to leave it to the nanny." Zhao Siqi glared angrily, once again attempting to push Sun Yan down. "Bitch, who gave you permission to talk nonsense?" Fortunately, Sun Yan reacted even faster, swiftly dodging backward. "Mom, look at her. How can such a vicious woman properly teach the future heir of the Gu family?" Only then did old Mrs. Gu give up hope, seeing Zhao Siqi's crazed behavior. "How come I never noticed before that Zhao Siqi is so lacking in class? Alright, let's do as you suggest." After serving 10 years in prison, the first thing Zhao Siqi did upon release was to go find Li Junqing, now goes by the name Guxing. Guxing truly lives up to being a strong gay boyfriend, already reaching a height of 1.7 meters at just 10 years old, broad shoulders, a narrow waist, and long legs. Watching him, standing at 1.37 meters tall, couldn't help but drool with envy. Zhao Siqi observed for a long time before confirming that this was indeed her child. "Sweetie, it's Mom. Mom came to see you." Guxing didn't even look up, directly calling the bodyguards to drive the person away. The bodyguards were used to seeing this kind of person. "Go away, go away. Where did this beggar come from?" Claiming relatives everywhere, Zhao Siqi had long lost the arrogant backbone she once used to bully others with her influence. She knelt on the ground, pleading to no avail, and then simply lay down, throwing a tantrum and rolling around. Guxing didn't indulge her either, and instead had her sent to a mental institution. Unexpectedly, Zhao Siqi had learned quite a few tricks while in prison. She actually managed to sneak out of the hospital to apply for a job as a cleaning lady in the neighborhood. Almost the moment she saw Zhao Siqi, Guxing's eyebrows furrowed. "Guxing, I really am your biological mother. If you don't believe me, we can do a paternity test." Guxing's eyes held a hint of amusement. "I believe it. So what?" Zhao Siqi froze in place. "So what? Shouldn't he be excited and overjoyed, welcoming her back to the Gu family to enjoy the happiness of family life? Raising a son ensures support in old age. A mother's status is elevated by her son. This is her little husband. After all, why is this different from what she had imagined? Guxing's patience had run out, and he was ready to throw Zhao Siqi into the nursing home to fend for herself. Life in the nursing home was almost like being in prison. From then on, she would be confined to a small room, unable to step outside even half a step. Zhao Siqi trembled in fear. "You can't treat me like this. I am your mother. If you don't acknowledge me, I'll tell Guemo that you're not his biological child." Guxing's eyes lit up. "Right, how could I have forgotten that?" Zhao Siqi laughed triumphantly. "Didn't expect that, did you? You're not Gumo's biological child. Back then, I never actually slept with Guemo. He was drunk and couldn't even get it up." Guxing also laughed, laughing hysterically. "Great, I'm not his biological child at all." Guxing immediately took out his phone watch to tell Guemo this good news. Zhao Siqi stood there dumbfounded. I stood to the side, holding back laughter as I watched her embarrassed expression. Zhao Siqi finally noticed me beside her. You're Gu Huandi. All little babies look pretty much the same. So when I was still a baby, she didn't even think of me as the Gu Huandi from her past life, but I have grown up now, looking exactly like Gu Huandi from my past life. It's not at all strange that she would notice, but I am no longer the Gu Huandi from my past life, who is at the mercy of others. My name is Gu Lian, the most beloved daughter of my parents, and the most cherished little princess of the Gu family. With our roles reversed, I just looked at Zhao Siki coldly. It was only then that Zhao Siki realized the Gu family now knows about Gu Xing's identity. The family business of the Gu family is most likely going to fall into my hands. Zhao Siki broke out in a cold sweat, speaking cautiously. Huandi, do you remember? I'm your mother. I sneered coldly. Of course I remember, my dear mother. In my past life, you made me suffer so much. Zhao Siki knelt on the ground and kowtowed repeatedly. In my past life, I was at fault. Please, for the sake of our mother-daughter relationship, let me go. I gently helped her up. Mother, when have you ever let me go? Send her to the sanatorium, and remember, treat her well. 2 bodyguards suddenly appeared from nowhere, pinning her down on either side and forcing her into the car. Zhao Siki would spend the rest of her life suffering in the sanatorium, unable to live or die as she wished. Meanwhile, Gu Xing had been raised in the Gu family for so many years. Grandma Gu had always looked down on girls, and she couldn't bear to part with her eldest grandson, whom she had raised for 10 years. She immediately suggested treating it as if they had adopted Gu Xing. At Gu Xing's strong insistence, his household registration was moved out, and he became an independent household. A person over 1.7 meters tall followed Gu Mo around all day long, and anyone who saw it couldn't help but remark on how close they were. Gu Xing knows I don't like old lady Gu jumping around with me, causing trouble everywhere. Finally, we managed to make old lady Gu so angry that she fell ill and took to her bed. The once proud and arrogant Mrs. Gu lay on the hospital bed. Drool kept trickling from the corner of my mouth. Sorry, Grandma, you'll spend the rest of your life in the nursing home with Zhao Siki. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. After being murdered by my husband and best friend, I queued up at the Underworld registration office. Rebirth and reincarnation, which family do you want to go to? The ghostly official asked me. I pointed at the pair of scumbags in the mirror of life and death, laughing sinisterly. Just their family. I want to be the fruit of their love. The ghost official was taken aback and advised me, with such heavy resentment, be careful it doesn't affect your fortune in the next life. No problem, I waved my hand dismissively. In this life, I will be a good daughter who returns to repay kindness. The next second, I was enveloped by warm amniotic fluid, followed by a dizzying squeeze, accompanied by a loud cry. I, Lin Wan, was born under the identity of Lin Yan, the daughter of my enemy. Congratulations, Mr. He. It's a baby girl, and her cries are so loud. The nurse wiped me clean and carefully carried me over to the woman, Baiyu, my best friend. At this moment, her face was pale, yet it radiated a saintly glow as she reached out her hand toward me. Baby, let mommy hold you. Her voice was so gentle it could wring out water. Mommy, you don't deserve that. The moment her fingertip touched my skin, without any warning, I erupted into the most heart-wrenching, most frantic wail of my life. Wah! My cry was so piercing it shattered the warmth of the delivery room. The nurse and doctor were both startled. Baiyu was so frightened by me that her hand trembled, nearly dropping me. What's going on? Everything was fine just a moment ago. The nurse quickly took me over. And as soon as I left Baiyu's embrace, my crying immediately subsided. Maybe it's just the newborn's insecurity, the doctor casually explained, not taking it to heart, but Baiyu's expression had already changed slightly. Back at the Li family home, whenever she came within 3 steps of me, my alarm would automatically go off. As long as she reached up to hold me, I would instantly transform from a delicate, jade-like baby into a desperately struggling hedgehog. My limbs flailed wildly, my sharp nails mercilessly clawing at all the exposed skin on her face, neck, and arms. Hiss, Baiyu winced in pain. Looking down, she saw 3 clear bloody scratches now marring her smooth arm, and I, seizing the opportunity, cried even more pitifully, as if I had suffered a great injustice. What's going on? Lija, who came at the sound, saw exactly the scene. Baiyu had blood on her arm, and her daughter was crying her heart out in her embrace, as if enduring some kind of torture. I don't know, she suddenly just. Baiyu's face turned deathly pale. Lija impatiently took me over. As soon as I was in his arms, my crying immediately stopped, and I even whimpered twice in grievance. I buried my flushed little face in his warm chest, found a comfortable position, and fell into a deep sleep. That well-behaved and quiet appearance was completely different from just a moment ago. Lija looked at the angelic daughter in his arms, then at the scratches on his wife's arm. his brows furrowing into a deep frown. From that day on, this became the daily routine of the Lee family. Whenever Bayou held me, I would scratch her and cry as if the sky were falling. When Leisha, Grandpa, Grandma, and even the nanny held me, I was as obedient as a fake doll. In less than a month, Bayou's body was covered with new injuries over old ones, and she had to use thick concealer to hide the bloodstains on her face. Meanwhile, rumors that the Lee family's little princess is naturally incompatible with her mother quietly began to spread. That night, Bayou once again had the corner of her mouth scratched by me. She finally broke down. "What on earth do you want?" She closed the door, lowered her voice, and snarled at me in the crib with a ferocious expression. "Are you a devil? Why are you only targeting me?" I opened my clear, innocent eyes wide and quietly watched her. "Yes, I am the devil who has come to claim your life." Seeing that I was neither crying nor making a fuss, Bayou's rationality slowly returned. She took a deep breath, as if comforting herself. "You're just a baby who doesn't understand anything. You don't know." Her hands trembling, she reached toward me again, as if trying to prove something. Just then, the door was pushed open. Leisha walked in holding a glass of milk. What he saw was his wife's ferocious expression and her hand extended toward their daughter with a threatening gesture. "Bayou, what are you doing?" He rushed forward in a flash, shielding me tightly in his arms, his gaze toward her filled with disappointment and coldness. I just wanted to hug her." Bayou desperately defended herself. Leisha held me, gently comforting me, then spoke to Bayou without looking up. "If you don't like her, stay away from her. From now on, let Aunt Jean take care of it." Since being stripped of custody, Bayou's status in this family has plummeted. She has gone from being the mistress of the house to a mere, dispensable symbol of motherhood. Living as a guest, Leisha has grown increasingly cold toward her, while the grandparents simply ignore her altogether. Only at family gatherings, where appearances needed to be kept up, was she allowed to hold me, putting on the facade of a loving mother and a filial daughter, and I, showered with everyone's affection, grew to the age of 2. I began to speak a few simple, indistinct words. Every single word was carefully calculated by me. On the day of Grandpa's birthday banquet, the Lee family was filled with distinguished guests, bustling with excitement. I was wearing a little red cheongsam, looking like a lucky doll, held in Grandpa's arms as I received everyone's praise. Bayou was dressed in an expensive gown, wearing exquisite makeup, forcing a smile as she stood to the side. I knew she was waiting for an opportunity, a chance to publicly demonstrate her maternal love and salvage a bit of her dignity. Sure enough, when it was time to cut the cake, she held a small piece of cream cake, walking towards me with graceful steps, her voice soft enough to drip with tenderness. "Nyan Nyan, my darling, come, let mommy feed you some cake." She had calculated that in such a setting, I wouldn't let her lose face. Unfortunately, she miscalculated. I have been waiting for this day for far too long. I immediately struggled to slip out of Grandpa's embrace, stepping back repeatedly as if I had seen something filthy. My little face was filled with fear and resistance. "No, don't," I stammered, my words slurred. Bayou's smile froze on her face. The relatives around us all turned their gazes toward us, eager to watch the drama unfold. "Be good, Nyan Nyan, Mom doesn't mean any harm," she said anxiously, taking another step forward and trying to grab my hand. "Now's the chance." I suddenly raised my small hand, mustering all my strength, and pointed at her face, which was slightly contorted with guilt. Then, I summoned all the resentment and murderous intent from my past life, condensing them into the most vicious curse. Through the mouth of a 2-year-old child, I screamed it out, word by word: "Bad woman, kill, people." Everyone stared at me in shock, then turned to look at Bayou, whose face had instantly turned as pale as a ghost. "Murder, what did she say? Did I hear that right? Oh my God, this child, has she been possessed by something evil?" The sound of discussion surged like a tide. My grandparents were the first to react, pulling me into their arms and patting my back with concern. "Nyan Nyan, don't be afraid. Did you have a nightmare yesterday? You're talking nonsense." Leisha's face instantly lost all color. Bayou completely broke down. "It wasn't me. I didn't do it," she screamed uncontrollably, pointing at me, her voice shrill and hysterical. "It's her. This little beast is talking nonsense. She's not a normal child. She's a devil, a mother, publicly calling her own biological daughter a beast and a devil." "Shut up." Leisha rushed forward and slapped her hard across the face. "Are you insane? How could you say such a thing to a 2-year-old child?" I lay in my grandfather's arms, watching that despicable couple turn against each other, feeling a shiver of vindictive pleasure surge within me. The farce at the birthday banquet became the final straw that broke Bayou. Madwoman, resentful wife, mother cursed by her own daughter. These labels clung to her like stubborn patches, making it impossible for her to hold her head high in the entire Lee family. Leisha avoided her like the plague. He seemed to truly believe my claim of being the embodiment of a resentful ghost. As soon as I got home, I locked myself in the study, preferring to see a ghost rather than face my true love wife. Bayu, completely isolated, visibly deteriorated in her mental state, she no longer dared to approach me on her own, but every time she looked at me, her eyes were filled with resentment and malice. She began to subject me to the silent treatment. Intentionally spilling my milk, making harsh noises while I'm sleeping, even when no one is around. She pinches my arm hard. I silently endure all of this, because I know she's venting her anger, and I was waiting for an opportunity to completely crush her. That opportunity was the crystal music box hidden deep in her jewelry box. It was a token of love that Leisha gave her after she became pregnant with me. I quietly slipped into her room. I moved a stool over, climbed onto the dressing table, and pulled out that crystal-clear music box. Without a moment's hesitation, I raised it and, with all my strength, smashed it fiercely against the marble floor. Crash! A crisp sound rang out as the music box shattered into pieces, scattering shards of glass all over the floor. That's not enough. I closed my eyes, and the image of my tragic death in my past life flashed through my mind. Then, I picked up the sharpest shard and, without hesitation, forcefully dragged it across my fair, tender arm. Hiss! A sharp, stinging pain shot through me, and blood immediately gushed out. The intense pain made it almost impossible for me to stand steady. I smeared a few drops of blood onto the skirt of my most beloved doll. Then, holding it tightly and carrying all the evidence on my body, I stumbled out of the room. Grandpa, Grandma, my tearful, fear-filled scream made everyone look at me in horror. I was seen with disheveled clothes, trembling all over, holding a blood-stained doll in my arms. On my other arm, a deep, bone-exposing wound was gushing blood. Oh my God, Nyen Nyen. Grandma let out a piercing scream and rushed over first. I buried my head in my grandmother's arms, crying so hard I could barely catch my breath. Using the broken phrases I had practiced so hard, I pieced together the most perfect lie. Mommy, bad, Mommy, doesn't like, Nyen Nyen. I held up the blood-stained doll, crying so hard I nearly fainted. Smash, smash the doll is broken, finally. I extended my bleeding arm and whimpered softly, hand, hurts, bleeding. Every word I spoke struck everyone's heart with force. Bayu was completely stunned. She looked at the wounds on my arm, then at her own empty hands, her mind a total blank. No, it wasn't me, I didn't. Her defense seemed so feeble and powerless in the face of all this blood. You poisonous woman. Grandpa trembled with rage, pointing at her nose, his eyes wide with fury. How dare you do such a cruel thing to Nyen Nyen? Our Lee family cannot tolerate a woman as heartless as you. Leisha was also completely terrified by the bloody scene before him. He looked at me, then at Bayu, who seemed to have gone mad, and the last trace of affection between husband and wife in his eyes was replaced by fear and disgust. Just as they were about to send me to the hospital, I lay on my grandfather's shoulder, looking past everyone's panic, and coldly stared at Bayu, whose face was as pale as death. I mouthed the words silently at her. Go, die. She understood. She looked at me and finally let out a scream of terror so extreme it sounded inhuman. The wound on my arm required 5 stitches. I became the most precious porcelain doll in the Lee family, carefully cradled wherever I went. Grandfather specially hired 2 bodyguards for me, working in shifts around the clock. Their sole task was to ensure Bayu could not come within 3 meters of me. Bayu was completely confined to her bedroom. I heard that she went crazy, smashing things and crying out that I was a devil, claiming that I had injured myself. Unfortunately, no one believed her. Who would believe the words of a madwoman who only knew how to harm her own child? But I know, this is not enough. House arrest is not the end. What I want is for her to disappear completely and cleanly from this family, for my life. That day, I sent the bodyguards away, saying I wanted to play hide-and-seek by myself for a while. Then I quietly walked to the door of her bedroom. The door is unlocked. She was sitting on the carpet, with the crystal music box I had smashed in front of her. She was muttering to herself, like a madwoman. I pushed the door open and walked in. She saw me and, like a startled rabbit, suddenly shrank into the corner, her eyes filled with fear. You, what are you doing here? I walked up to her, crouched down, and said to her in a tone completely unlike my age, word by word, I came to take back what's mine. Bayu's pupils suddenly contracted sharply. I looked at her, slowly revealing a smile that belonged to Linwan, one she was most familiar with. You stole my husband, killed me. No, I'm going to take it all back, one by one. Bayu's sanity, at this moment, completely shattered. She finally realized that I was no ordinary child. I was Linwan's vengeful spirit, returned to claim her life. Devil. I'll kill you, you devil, screaming. She lunged at me like a madwoman, her bloodshot eyes blazing with the most primal murderous intent. She grabbed my arm and dragged me out, pulling me toward the long, marble staircase on the second floor. I did not resist. I was even cooperating with her. I was precisely calculating the time. I knew that in another 10 seconds, Grandpa would come out of the study and go downstairs for his unshakable daily afternoon tea. Go to hell, you little beast, Bayou had completely lost her mind. She dragged me to the stairwell and raised her hand high in the air. Now's the chance. I heard the faint sound of the study door being turned open, just as Bayou's slap was about to land, with all my strength. I let out the most piercing, most terrified scream, "Mom, don't push me." Then, I actively broke free from her hand. Without hesitation, I tumbled down those dozens of cold, hard steps. The world spun around me. The excruciating pain of bone striking the steps nearly made me pass out on the spot. Bang! My body, like a tattered rag doll, crashed heavily onto the first floor. The left arm was unnaturally twisted at a bizarre angle. An excruciating pain, like a tsunami, overwhelmed me. But I still mustered the last of my strength and lifted my head. I saw Grandpa standing at the top of the second-floor staircase, his face deathly pale, trembling all over as he stared at the hellish scene before him. He saw Bayou's hand, raised high and too late to lower. He heard my desperate cry of "Don't push me." He also witnessed the tragic scene of me falling down the stairs. I met his eyes, filled with shock, anger, and endless sorrow. I extended my intact right hand, trembling, and pointed at the woman upstairs who had completely turned to stone. My tears and cold sweat mixed together, my voice faint. "Grandpa, save me, Mom, she wants to kill me." The moment the words fell, my head tilted to the side, and I passed out. Before I lost consciousness, I heard my grandfather's voice, a roar completely distorted by extreme anger and heartache. I remained unconscious in the hospital for a full day and night. When I woke up, my left arm was already encased in a thick cast, suspended high in front of my chest. The diagnosis report read, fracture of the ulna in the left arm, accompanied by severe multiple soft tissue contusions. My Ninian, my precious. Grandma held me in her arms, weeping as if her heart were breaking. She stroked my face over and over again. Grandpa stood by the window, his back looking desolate. Yet an aura of impending storm seemed to surround him, from Grandma's intermittent sobs. I pieced together everything that had happened after I lost consciousness. The ambulance and my grandfather's private lawyer arrived at the Lee family villa almost simultaneously. Bayou was immediately restrained by the bodyguards and locked in the attic on the 3rd floor. There were people guarding the door around the clock. She screamed and cursed inside like a madwoman, calling me a devil and claiming that everything was my design. Unfortunately, my broken bones and my speechlessness from shock were the ironclad evidence of all her crimes. 2 days later, I was discharged from the hospital. Grandfather personally wheeled me into the Lee family's main hall in a wheelchair. In the hall, all the Lee family relatives, along with the family's legal advisor, were sitting upright and solemn. Bayou, escorted down from the attic by the bodyguards, was thrown into the center of the hall like a dead dog. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes vacant, with not a trace of her former radiance left. "Leisha," grandfather's voice was cold, devoid of any warmth. Leisha trembled slightly, lowering his head as he stepped forward. The lawyer placed a document and a pen in front of him. "This is the divorce agreement. Sign it. Make her leave with nothing, otherwise, you can both get out of this house. No room for maneuver." This was forcing Leisha to make a choice. To choose the true love he once went so far as to kill his wife to obtain, or to choose the wealth and glory of the Lee family. Leisha's face turned pale, then flushed with anger. He glanced at Bayou, who was lying on the ground looking haggard, and then at me, sitting in a wheelchair, pale and pitiful, his only, and future, sole reliance. He made this choice in just half a second. He picked up the pen and, without even looking at the content of the agreement, quickly signed his name at the end. "Dad, I'm sorry." He turned around, bowed deeply to his grandfather, his voice filled with remorse. "It was my blindness that brought the wolf into our home, nearly harming Nian Nian and endangering our Lee family." He shifted all the blame away, leaving himself completely clean. "Leisha, you," on the ground. Bayou looked up in disbelief. She looked at this man she had given everything to love, at his cold and resolute face now, and finally understood something. She didn't cry or make a scene anymore. Instead, she laughed. "Ha ha, ha 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 ha." Her laughter was mournful and mad. "Retribution, it's all retribution. Leisha, you will get your retribution, and that little beast, she's not human, she will devour you, all of you will die." Amidst her curses, the bodyguards stepped forward expressionlessly. They dragged her out of the wealthy family she had once dreamed of joining. After Bayou was dragged away, Grandpa turned to the lawyer and uttered words that made Leisha's heart shatter. "Draft another document." Transfer 20% of the shares in the Li Group under my name to Nian Nian immediately. Grandfather walked over to me, gently touching my arm in a cast, his eyes filled with deep pity and guilt. In front of everyone, he declared, "From today onward, Li Nian is the sole heir of the Li family." Li's body suddenly swayed. He looked at me, his 3-year-old daughter sitting in a wheelchair. For the first time, all paternal love and pity faded from his eyes. "Dad, now, it's your turn." After Baiyu was kicked out, my left arm rested for a full year. Even though it had long since healed, I would still hold my arm and cry out in pain on every gloomy, rainy day, to remind every member of the Li family, especially Lija, of what they owe me. Nourished by this guilt, I grew to the age of 7. I became the little queen of the Li family, whose word was law. My grandparents dote on me and follow my every word, while my father, Lija, has completely become my high-class servant. His authority in the company has been stripped away, and his daily tasks now consist of driving me to and from school and playing games with me. His sole purpose in life is to play the role of a perfectly devoted father to make up for the mistakes he once made. A man in his prime, full of ambition, trapped in such a life naturally seeks solace elsewhere. Soon, I caught the scent of an unfamiliar perfume on him, without much effort. I used the latest tablet my grandfather had given me to hack into his phone. The woman was named Zhang Man, a young and beautiful recent college graduate. Lija rented her a high-end apartment, gifted her designer bags and jewelry, and spent lavishly. He was clearly moved by genuine emotion, as the chat records were filled with such cheesy phrases as "baby" and "my new life." I looked at those chat records and laughed. "Lija, your new life is your death sentence." I didn't go to my grandparents to complain. That would have been too easy for him. I chose a night when he had just finished being intimate with Zhang Man and returned home, in his best mood, holding my little bear. I walked into his study. "Dad," I called out timidly. "Nian Nian, what's wrong? Did you have a nightmare?" Lija immediately put down his phone and opened his arms to me. I didn't go over, just stood where I was, head lowered, asking softly, "Dad, do you not want Nian Nian anymore? Don't talk nonsense." Lija's expression changed. "How could Dad not want you?" I raised my head, my eyes already brimming with tears. "But I saw you buying a pretty dress for another auntie. Are you going to find me a new mom? Is Nian Nian not being good enough?" As I spoke, tears fell one after another, my crying both sorrowful and restrained. Lija was completely flustered. He rushed over and pulled me into his arms, explaining incoherently, No, Dad just made a new friend. Dad would never abandon Nian Nian." "Really?" I lifted my tear-streaked face. "Really?" He swore to the heavens. Seeing his panicked expression, I knew the timing was just right. I stopped crying and, with a maturity beyond my years, began to consider things from his perspective. "Dad, don't be afraid." I wiped the sweat from his forehead with my small hand. "Dad is also very lonely by himself. Nian Nian knows. As long as Dad is happy, that's all that matters." Lija was stunned. He probably thought I would throw a tantrum, but he never expected such consideration in return. I sniffled, mustering all the acting skills I had in me, and delivered the most fatal blow to him. "Dad, you must never let Grandpa and Grandma know." I grabbed his clothes, lowering my voice as if sharing a huge secret. "They'll be angry with you." "Nian Nian will keep your secret, let's pinky promise." I extended my little finger. Lija looked at me, his eyes slowly reddening. Emotion, guilt, and a sense of relief after a narrow escape filled his eyes. He thought I was genuinely considering his well-being. He believed that I, his daughter whom he had wronged so much, was his only ally. He trembled as he hooked his pinky with mine. "Nian Nian, you really are Daddy's little sweetheart." Choking back tears, he held me tightly in his arms. I took the opportunity to pull a bank card from my pocket. It was a supplementary card Grandpa had given me, with no spending limit. "Dad, this is for you." I stuffed it into his hand. "Help me buy a necklace for that pretty auntie. If she's happy, Dad will smile more." At that moment, Lija's psychological defenses were completely shattered by me. He held me, a man nearly 40 years old, crying like a child. He kept saying I was his angel, his only salvation in this life. I let him hold me, wearing the most innocent, purest smile on my face, but in my heart, I was sneering. "Don't cry. When I personally send you to hell, you'll have plenty of time to thank me, your good daughter." With my encouragement and cover, Lija and the woman named Zhang Man became increasingly entangled in their love. Lija naively believed that I, his daughter, was his only ally and salvation. He even began to envision his brand new future in front of me. When Grandpa grows old and I grow up, he can openly be with Zhang Man and have another sensible son. I listened to his drunken ramblings, a naive smile on my face, but my heart was filled with a cold, murderous intent. "Lija, you really deserve to die." I used the money my grandfather gave me to support their romance. Meanwhile, I quietly got in touch with Zhang Man using another phone. I knew she was pregnant. I knew she longed for a proper status. I also know that deep down, she is a greedy and foolish woman. On my grandmother's 65th birthday, I timed it perfectly and sent her one last message under an anonymous identity. Leisure will announce his engagement to the heiress of the Lin Group tonight. You and your child will end up with nothing. This is your last chance. The Lee family's birthday banquet. I was wearing a white princess dress, nestled close to my grandmother, receiving everyone's blessings. Leisure stood not far away, holding a wine glass, beaming with joy. He probably thought that as long as he could keep me and my grandparents happy, he could continue living this stable life forever. Just as Grandma was about to cut the cake, and the party atmosphere reached its peak, Leisha, you come out here, a young woman, heavily pregnant and with tears streaming down her face, broke through the security guard's attempts to stop her and rushed in like a madwoman. It was Zhang Man. All eyes in the room instantly focused on her and Leisha, whose face had turned deathly pale. You liar, Zhang Man pointed at Leisha, crying her heart out. You said you would marry me, you said you would give our child a home, and now, you're going to get engaged to another woman, aren't you? What nonsense are you talking about? Get out of here. Leisha was terrified out of his wits. He rushed forward, wanting to cover her mouth and drag her away. The scene instantly descended into chaos. Grandpa was trembling with anger, and Grandma's face turned pale, watching the grand drama I had personally directed unfold before my eyes. I knew it was time for me, the best actress, to make my entrance. I ran away from my grandmother, shouting in a panicked, tearful voice as I ran, Dad, Dad, what's wrong with you? Who is this auntie? Make her leave right now. I rushed between the two people who were pulling at each other, stretching out my frail little hands to push Zhang Man with all my might. You bad woman. Don't you dare bully my dad. Of course I know that an 8-year-old child's strength is simply not enough to push over an adult, but I don't actually need to push her over. All I need is to find the right angle amid the chaotic struggle and use my body to slam hard into her prominently bulging belly. Zhang Man let out a piercing scream and fell backward like a kite with its string cut. A dull thud echoed. She fell to the ground, and bright red blood quickly spread from beneath her skirt. Everyone was stunned by this bloody scene. Leisha stared blankly at the blood on the ground, then looked at me, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. I, on the other hand, immediately panicked and lost all composure, sitting down on the ground and bursting into earth-shattering sobs. I didn't look at the woman on the ground. Instead, I stumbled and crawled toward my grandmother, who had already rushed over, and clung tightly to her leg. Grandma, I'm sorry. I cried so hard I could barely catch my breath, almost fainting. I didn't mean to. I just wanted Dad to come home. That woman, she wouldn't let go of Dad, so I pushed her. Grandma, did I cause a huge disaster? Whoa. My cries were filled with a child's innocence, fear, and the self-blame that comes after causing trouble. Everyone present looked at the woman who had miscarried on the ground, at the distraught Leisha, and then at me, the victim who was crying so hard I could barely breathe, all in my eagerness to protect my father. Their expressions slowly shifted from shock to sympathy and pity. Yes, I'm just an 8-year-old child. I just wanted to protect my dad. What did I do wrong? Grandma's birthday banquet ended in a bloody farce. Zhang Man was taken to the hospital, and the baby could not be saved. She cried her heart out in the hospital, blaming all the guilt on Leisha, who had deceived her feelings. As for me, due to extreme shock and deep self-blame, I developed a high fever and fell into a coma. My illness became the last straw that broke Leisha. Grandpa looked at me lying in the hospital bed, my face flushed with fever and still talking nonsense, and delivered his final judgment. From today onward, I no longer have a son like you. All the Lee family's businesses have nothing to do with you. The cards under your name have all been frozen. Now, get out. Leisha widened his eyes in disbelief, knelt down, and clung to Grandpa's leg, pleading desperately, but Grandpa just coldly kicked him away. Just like that, Leisha was stripped of everything and driven out of the Lee family like a stray dog. I was sick for half a month. During this half-month, I knew Leisha's situation inside out. He was penniless and his reputation was completely ruined. Zhang Man's family hated him to the core, and they even hired someone to break one of his legs. Like a rat scurrying across the street, he hid in the cheapest, filthiest rental room. He survived by selling off the last of his luxury watches and belts. I know that a gambler pushed to the brink will do the most insane things, and I am his last, and only, bet. I deliberately let the bodyguards lower their guard, insisting on staying an extra 10 minutes at the dessert shop outside the school gate every day after class. On the third day, that familiar yet unfamiliar figure appeared. Leisha limped towards me. He had lost a lot of weight, his eyes bloodshot and filled with madness. Nian. His voice was hoarse. The surrounding bodyguards immediately grew alert, but I shook my head at them, then dashed toward Leisha like a happy little bird. Dad, I missed you so much. I threw myself into his arms, speaking the most heart-wrenching words in a coquettish tone. Grandpa won't let me see you, Dad. Do you not want Nian Nian anymore? My naivety and dependence caused the madness in his eyes to fade slightly. It then transformed into a twisted form of paternal love and hope. How could Dad not want you? He held me tightly and whispered in my ear, in a voice only the two of us could hear. Nian Nian, do Daddy a favor, okay? As long as you come with me, we can be together forever from now on. Okay, I nodded without hesitation. I took the initiative to hold his hand and, under the astonished gazes of the bodyguards, got into his old, run-down van. The car drove all the way to an abandoned, unfinished building. He used an old-fashioned mobile phone to dial his grandfather's number, his voice trembling with excitement. Dad, I have Nian Nian. Get me 500 million ready, otherwise, I'll take her down with me. After hanging up, he looked at me with a complicated expression. There was greed, there was guilt, but more than anything, there was a desperate madness. I sat in the corner, hugging my school bag, tilting my head, and asked with an innocent look on my face, Daddy, are we playing a game, just like you and Bayou dealt with that auntie in the photo? Lija's body suddenly stiffened. You, how do you know? He stared at me in horror, as if looking at a monster, because I saw it. I giggled and pointed to my eyes. I've been watching you all along. He was utterly devastated. He clutched his head and began to scream incoherently. It wasn't my fault. It was all Bayou, that bitch. It was her idea. She said as long as Linwan died, we could be together forever. She was the one who contacted the people for the car accident. I just drove her to that road. I didn't want her to die. I really didn't want her to die. He shouted out all his crimes right in front of me. And I quietly pressed the switch on the miniature recorder attached to my backpack pendant. Thank you for your confession. Now, you can die in peace. As I pressed the switch on the voice recorder, I also activated the emergency positioning system hidden behind the pendant. Everything my grandfather gave me was top tier. In less than 10 minutes, the sound of sirens grew closer and closer. Heavily armed SWAT officers descended from the sky, pinning the completely mentally broken Lija firmly to the ground, and I was held in the arms of a tall police officer. He covered my eyes with his warm, large hands and gently said to me, "Don't be afraid, little one, everything is fine now." I buried my face in his chest, trembling all over. At the police station, I saw my anxious grandparents. I threw myself into their arms, crying uncontrollably, and only then, as if realizing it belatedly, did I take out the little bear pendant from my pocket. "Grandpa, Dad," he said so many terrifying things, I sobbed, handing over the voice recorder. I was scared, so I pressed this. The evidence is ironclad: kidnapping, murder, multiple charges combined. Both of them were sentenced to life imprisonment. Years later, at my coming-of-age ceremony, my grandfather officially handed over the position of chairman of the Lee Group to me, with my assistance. The market value of the Lee Group tripled, becoming more glorious than ever before, and I, Lee Nianwan, became the youngest and most legendary queen in the entire business world. On the second day after I officially took over the company, I cancelled all my meetings and drove alone to the maximum security prison in the suburbs. In the special visitation room, I saw my parents of this lifetime through the thick bulletproof glass. Life in prison had long since worn them down beyond recognition. Lija's hair had turned mostly white, his back was hunched, and his face was etched with deep lines of humiliation and regret. Bayou had aged even more terribly. Her once proud beauty was completely gone, leaving only a pair of lifeless eyes. They saw me, and a glimmer of light simultaneously flickered in their murky eyes. Nian Nian, you came to see us." Lija was the first to speak, pressing his face excitedly against the glass. "Dad knows he was wrong. Dad is sorry to your mom. And sorry to you too. Could you please beg your grandpa to let Dad out early?" Bayou also began to cry, pounding on the glass with all her might. "Nian, Mom misses you so much. Can you forgive Mom?" Back then, Mom was blinded by greed. They were still dreaming of making a comeback. I watched them quietly, waiting until they had cried enough and finished their performance before slowly revealing a smile. "Dad, do you remember that the first birthday gift you gave Linwan was a Parker pen?" Lija's crying abruptly stopped. He froze, looking at me in confusion. I then turned to Bayou, my smile unchanged. "Mom, do you remember that limited edition scarf Linwan gave you? You said you loved it so much, but then you turned around and used it as a cushion on the hotel bed where you and Lija were having an affair." Bayou's expression froze. She looked at me, and a hint of fear began to appear in her eyes. Through the glass, my tone was gentle. "You meticulously planned to kill Linwan and seize everything she had. You have joyfully welcomed the crystallization of your love. You raised her, watching as she personally sent you step by step into hell." I stood up, looking down at the two faces on the other side of the glass that had already lost all color. Slowly, I revealed the final answer. "What a pity. I am Linwan." I saw Lige's pupils instantly dilate to their limit, his entire body went limp, as if his bones had been pulled out, and he made a heh-heh sound from his mouth, like a dying fish. "And by you?" She stared at me with a deathly gaze, the muscles on her face twitching uncontrollably. A few seconds later, she suddenly erupted into a shrill, inhuman burst of wild laughter. She laughed, she cried, banging her head against the hard bulletproof glass, looking utterly insane. I didn't spare them another glance. I turned around, pushed open that heavy iron door, and walked out. Behind me were the utterly broken and desperate howls of two sinners. Lin Wan was already dead. The one who survived was Li Nianwan. The sky is high, the sea is wide. I can soar freely. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.